This is going to be a series of 3 videos detailing fixing deep scratches on a hard shell RC body. The first video will cover sanding basics, using putty, and just all around prepping the vehicle. The second video will go over the primer, wet sanding, blending, and getting ready for the paint. And obviously the third video will cover the painting and laying out the stripes and the color and the clear and all that. So this will be part 1 on the sanding, and I hope you all enjoy it. Here I'm using a 320 grit. The objective here is to just cut through the paint and get the primer and to get those deep scratches out. You'll see as the video goes on, we'll switch to a lighter, less aggressive, and start feathering the sanded spots out. When we actually start to paint, it'll blend in a lot easier, a lot nicer. By changing the direction of your sanding, it greatly speeds up the time of sanding. It knocks it down a lot faster. So I will always sand in one direction and then sand in the opposite direction, and you'll see how quickly that starts to cut in. During this, you can see I'm taking a lot of care into staying away from the sharper edges, like the drip rails, the windshield, around the windshield. Any edges that you come across in sand are going to sand a lot faster, and you can really do some damage to the plastic if you're not careful. Now during this whole process, I'll stop every now and then. You'll notice I'll run my fingernail very lightly over the area I'm sanding, and this is just to see if I have gotten the scratches out. If you haven't, your fingernail will hang up ever so slightly. Don't use a whole lot of pressure, just very gently run your fingernail across the scratches to determine how much sanding is needed in that area. You can see I do a lot of touchy-feely on the buggy. Don't trust your eyes completely. You know, sometimes you just gotta rub your fingers over it and just feel it out. You'll be able to feel whether you've got any sharp edges and you need to knock things down as you go. Just take your time. Yeah, I think I have a few hours in sanding this body alone. But you'll see how, you know, taking your time and just being very observant. You know, don't just trust your eyes. Put your fingers on there. You'll be able to feel any raises in the paint, scratches, and just work your sandpaper around till you feather those out. By feathering those out, I mean you need to really blend them to where you can feel no difference from the spot you're sanding to the transition to your paint. At this stage, it's okay to feel a little bit of a difference between the spot you're sanding and your actual paint. You just want to make sure it isn't a hard edge. It's okay to feel a little bit of difference. We will switch to a finer grit sandpaper as we go on and continue to blend that out to where there is no transition. You know, you'll just visually see the transition, but you won't be able to feel it. It'll be, you know, smooth. By slapping the sandpaper onto my jeans, it helps clear out any of the paint dust and stuff off the sandpaper. If your sandpaper starts to get gummed up, you'll want to switch and get newer sandpaper. And those little gummed up parts of your sandpaper can do a lot of damage to your paint, so just keep an eye on that. You don't want to pack up that paper too bad. Again, you can see how I'm changing the direction of my sandpaper, going in one direction and then switching it to the opposite direction, or going across more, I should say. You know, and that really helps to knock down the paint, especially if you've got a clear coat or something on your paint. It takes quite a while to get through that, depending on how thick you put it on. I put mine on very thick, as you can see in my paint video. Just like to take your time, change your directions, and you'll see just how quick it does start to knock the paint down. I also want to mention real quick that I'm not using any real pressure on this. I'm letting the sandpaper do the work. The last thing you want to do is cut into your plastic, so then you're gonna have to do a lot of filler work and stuff like that. So my fingers are only holding the paper. I'm not really putting any pressure down on this. You can cut your sanding time by putting pressure down on it, but then again, like I said, that works with real cars and metal cars, but on plastic you don't really want to do that. You'll end up cutting into your actual body, and that requires a lot of filler work, and just save yourself the trouble. Let the sandpaper do the work. Very minimal pressure. I like using a microfiber cloth to clean up my area. That way it doesn't like blow a lot of dust everywhere and make a mess. It pretty much all stays on the cloth there. The whole process is just feeling, sanding, feeling, sanding, feeling, sanding. Take your time. Don't get in a hurry. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it all through this part. It's just me sanding and feeling, sanding and feeling. This is by far the biggest spot that took damage. The nose is the worst, but this is the biggest spot. So it's just me sanding with the 320. So we'll just fast forward through this part. fenders took very minimal damage, so I'm not going to be priming them. I'm just going to get rid of the rough marks on them, the light scratches, and again, still using a 320 grip. I will go down to a lighter grip and just start blending that in to where when I do paint it, it'll feel nicely. Sanding, you can see that low spot. It wasn't there before. I'm assuming that happened during the crash, so we'll have to get that cleared, and that'll be puttied just to get rid of that low spot. Here I'm just taking the Tamiya putty and filling in that low spot on the nose I showed you. I also use it for a few spots where the scratches actually got into the plastic body of the beetle, and the putty will fill those. When I sand them down, we'll have a nice smooth surface. When I'm feeling the scratches, the putty, the first time I put it on, I'll push it down kind of hard, just to make sure it gets deep into those scratches, and then I'll use the putty knife just to kind of smooth it over and work it to where it thins it out a little bit, but doesn't take it out of the scratch. Now we will set this aside and let that putty cure up and get ready for sanding it out, making it all smooth and ready for primer.